Yep.
All right, how's everybody doing today?
Great.
Very good. I greatly appreciate y'all coming. We're here to talk about the registration going to 8th grade. The difference in the crowd is kind of unbelievable. If y'all can remember last year, we did this last night with the incoming 7th graders. And at 5:30, there was lots of people here, and by 6 o'clock, standing room only around the side, no chairs left. We put out half the chairs tonight. And at 5:30, there was no of y'all here. And I was like, did I advertise the wrong dates? And I was going through all these things, but it's so different what a year will make. So just in case you're not familiar, my name is Brian Miles. I am the 7th grade counselor, and I will be the 8th grade counselor next year. And I'll go ahead and step into this. And your kids brought home a course description guide and a registration sheet, and you should have those at the house. And what I want to point out to you in the very first couple of pages, if you don't read anything else in the guide, I encourage you to read the guide. But if you don't read anything else in the guide, please read the first couple of pages. It's a frequently asked question page, and it will probably answer a lot of the questions that you may have for registration. Real quick, we have Mrs. Tamales, who is our current 8th grade counselor, and Mrs. Principal. You're not a counselor. I know who you are.
You're not a principal, so we're both
You're not the principal. Assistant principal. I'm not. Let me start over. Mr. Mann is our head principal. Y'all know him. Mrs. Tamales, who does not have the mustache, is over here. She is our current 8th grade assistant principal, and Mrs. Fagan is my co-part, and she is the 7th grade assistant principal. Great. Okay, this is a night that I want you to ask questions. It's a little bit smaller crowd, obviously, than last night, so I don't. At least it's not me. Okay. It's a smaller crowd, so I encourage questions. I don't mind. If you keep your questions a little bit broad and general, though, if you do have questions, that way it does help remind you to say things at times. But if you do have real specific questions, I will stay right here until the last person leaves and answer any question that you may have about registration, no matter what it is, if it has to do with your specific student. So this is a good time to do those things. 8th grade is a year of the grade STAR exam, and so 8th grade is the year that your students are required to pass the reading and the math STAR exam in order to be considered for promotion to the next grade. That does not, they have 3 chances at it. They'll take the first one, and then if they're not successful, then they will have an opportunity for a second test, and then there will be some interventions in between. And then if they're not successful in the second test, there's yet a third test in the summer, and the kids typically in summer school. And then after that test, if they're still not successful, a committee comes together to decide if a student needs to be promoted to the next grade or not. That sounds all very scary, but if your student is doing well with grades, don't worry about this piece as much. We want them to do well, don't get me wrong, but we want our students to do well with their grades. And if they're doing well with their grades, don't be as stressed about the STAR test as what some people are. So, but it is a year that the state requires our kids to pass math and reading, and they will have 3 opportunities. They also take science and social studies tests this coming year. So, I mentioned high school registration. We start high school registration for our current 8th graders February the 3rd. And the only reason I mention it is because next February, your kiddos will be registering for high school, which is probably a very scary thing for everybody. It's just, they're growing up fast. Think about why they're registering in February is that they use the grades as the most strong, that's how they determine which classes they should take at high school. And they have honors and pre-AP at high school. And they have honors and pre-AP in not just English and math, it's in science and social studies. And they have electives, and a lot of those are honors and pre-AP as well. And what I told your students the other day when I presented to them is they need to start off 8th grade strong. They don't need to wait and ease into the year. Because since we register in February, the only grades that teachers will have to go by will be first 6 weeks, second 6 weeks, third 6 weeks, and maybe fourth. They make their decisions at that time, but then they have the ability to change later. But your students need to start off strong when they start off in 8th grade. And then we also talked to them a little bit about transcript and GPA, and I'd like to go over briefly with you. Most of you probably are aware of it, but a transcript is just a record of all the grades that your students make for high school credit and the grade that they made for that class. The GPA is a grade point average, and they assign a number value for each high school credit that they have. And if it's an honors or pre-AP class, it starts with 5. So if you get 100 in an honors class, it's worth 5 points of GPA. If you maybe 100 in a regular high school class, then it's worth 4 points of GPA. And they average all that stuff together, and it comes up with the final grade point average, which is tied to their ranking in high school and obviously scholarships and all that kind of stuff. I did speak to the kids about what all those things are. And I would encourage you to follow up with that to make sure that they understand that, because they already have some things on their high school transcript. And one of those is keyboarding, because it's a required course for all 7th graders. That's a high school credit. And so that course is recorded on the transcript, and the grade is reported on the transcript. The GPA is not affected by that course. It does not factor into the GPA. It's just a credit, okay? But we do have classes that do factor into the GPA, and I'll tell you about those as we go through tonight. You do have to have 26 credits to graduate high school, and anything that they earn for high school credit in junior high counts toward that 26. For instance, keyboarding counts as 0.5 if they pass it. And so they would only need 25.5. What's good about that is that the high school, if you don't know, you're not familiar with either high school, they have so many things to offer. It's unbelievable. Your students will go on something called a K tour next year, and they'll get to see a lot of the things that are offered at the high school. I mean, they can graduate with certificates to be a 911 dispatcher. They can be technicians with computers and all kinds of stuff. It's amazing what the high school offers. But the more credits you have now, the more room you have for extra electives as you go into high school. And you know, they all love the senior 2-period off thing. So if you have enough credits, and they can do that and go to work or whatever it is that they're doing. The regular junior high grade, the regular junior high classes, for instance, it's a high school credit, but it's not an honor credit. Things like Algebra 1 regular, keyboarding, Spanish 1, communications applications, and PE foundations, which we'll talk about some of these tonight. Those are all high school credits, and they are recorded on the transcript. They do not go toward the GPA. But there are classes that we do have, like pre-AP algebra, pre-AP geometry, Spanish 2 honors, Spanish 3 pre-AP, Spanish 4 AP, that do, but they also count toward their GPA. So those classes are a little bit more serious than maybe some of the other ones. You might have any questions about the high school transcript, GPA, what counts? Okay. Y'all know this already, but when you're looking at the registration sheet, if you see a 1 by the class, that means the class lasts all year long. If you see a half by the class, that means the class lasts half a year. And they would have to complete their schedule, they have to have 7 total credits. They can't sign up for 6.5, they can't sign up for 8, they have to sign up for exactly 7 credits to complete their schedule for 8th grade. And these are the required courses. They're required to take English, Math, Science, U.S. History, and computer literacy. They took keyboarding this year. They'll take computer literacy next year. Now, computer literacy, unlike keyboarding, is not a high school credit. So just to make real clear on that. But these 4.5 credits are required that all students take them while they're here at our school. Computer lit is offered at our school. We'll talk about it here again shortly. But just for some of you that some kids will have to take computer lit summer, and I'll explain who those are. Now on here, you can see there's no place for us to write advanced. You can't check advanced on our registration sheet. The reason why is because those decisions aren't made until later in the year. Now, I told the kids, if you're a student or if you have a parent that, man, it's just everything in them that they have to write it on there. And I understand that. My wife is one of those people. And so if you feel the need to write it on there, it's okay, you can. But please just understand that when you write advanced on that, that doesn't mean they're automatically in advanced. They still have to qualify before we place them in advanced. Now I'm talking to the parents of kids that are in 7th grade advanced math. Only the kids that are in 7th grade advanced math for just a few minutes. The kids that are in 7th grade advanced math this year, they're going to be in 1 and 2 classes next year. It's going to be Algebra Pre-AP or it's going to be Algebra 1 regular. There are huge differences between those 2 classes that I'm going to discuss tonight. These are the requirements that we want to see for students that are going into the Pre-AP version of the course. Algebra 1 Pre-AP is a 9th grade Pre-AP course. The main number one thing is we like to see A's in their first 4 to 6 weeks. We want to see A's. There's a basic skills test that they'll take in mid-February. It's not really anything that you study for, but they take this test and we like to see a 90% or higher on that test as well. They're taking an M-STAR, it's called Screener, and they're taking it this week. Again, it's not a study for thing, but it's another tool that we use to help determine which kids may be successful in Algebra 1 Pre-AP. Now, Mr. Miles, my son or daughter, they have an 88 average. Does that mean they're not going to get in this course? No, it doesn't. These are just the tools that we use. There are kids that will automatically qualify, and there were kids that we will come together as a committee with the math teachers, discuss it, and make our recommendations. We'll get letters that have that recommendation after they're made, and that's usually in about May, early May or late April. Some things you need to know about the Pre-AP course, and I don't want to scare you because we have 4 or maybe even 5 sections of Algebra Pre-AP, and they're all full. So we have at least 120 kids that do really well in this course. It is a high school level. It goes with the transcript. It does count for the GPA. Not every 7th grade advanced math student will be in this course, and high school rules apply to the course. Wow, what does high school rules mean? Well, we have a district policy for homework and everything, but high school, a Pre-AP or an honors level course in high school, there is no late homework policy. It's you turn it on the day that it's due, or it's a 0. There's no late work accepted. District policy typically is you can turn in the next day, you still make 100. I'm thankful for that policy because I have a 5th grader, and oh my gosh, do we use that policy. And it won't, I mean, you know, I use example of kids. We had a volleyball game last night. I didn't have time, and you still have to get your homework done somehow. And a lot of these kids are what I call time scavengers. You see the algebra kids oftentimes, you see them in the cafeteria, it's lunch, and they got the homework next to them while they're eating their sandwich, or you see them in the morning, or they're in tutorials just to take care of their homework because they know the policy and they know how that works. Also, tests are a little different because you take a test one time and there is no retest. There's no corrections, there's no extra points on that. You take the test, you get a grade, and that's the grade that you receive. So it's very different than what the kids are used to. I'm going to come back to the bottom one in just a moment, but the Algebra 1 regular course is different in the fact that it follows the regular district homework policy. It also follows the district policy for tests. If you unfortunately don't perform as well on a test, then you have an opportunity to do corrections, or you can go into tutorials and retake it, whatever that teacher's policy is, and bring that grade up. Okay, so that's a huge, just that alone is a huge difference. Going back to the Pre-AP, test count 75% of the total grade. That's different than they're used to. It's been 66 this whole time since they've been in advance. It's not that big of a point difference, but tests are important as you move into honors and Pre-AP courses. So as a parent, you need to be aware of that. And our algebra students will take what's called an end-of-course exam. They will currently, I have to say currently, because the state changes things all the time, but currently, they will not take 8th grade STAR. They will take an end-of-course exam. There are 5 exams required, called end-of-course exams, before they graduate high school. It's part of the curriculum that's required by the state. This is one of those tests. To this date, we've had 0 students fail that test that have been in algebra. 0. So I tell you that to not stress out about it. We have had some kids that were close, okay? And I'm fearful that one day it'll happen, but part of the reason the kids do well is they're both advanced courses. Most of these kids are advanced kids anyway, and they typically perform well on exams, and that's why I feel like we've had some of our success with algebra. The pre-AP, you do get an extra point on your grade point average. In other words, 100 is a 5, 4. Where in algebra, 100 is a 4 and a 90 is a 3. So there's a difference in grade points as well. Any questions about algebra in particular before we move on? Yes, ma'am.
If the student is recommended to take it, do they have to?
Oh, that's a great question. Are they required to take it? Just because they're recommended? No, they're not. They're not required to take it. You can take Algebra 1 regular if you want. But I will tell you, this is counselor talking, and it's highly encouraged. If they're recommended, there's a real good reason why you don't feel that they probably should. If they're recommended and they fall to pieces somehow, typically we're able to change your schedule to a regular algebra as long as it's early enough in the year. Mr. Miles, wait a minute now, and I'll go ahead and say it. My child was not recommended for algebra pre-AP. They were recommended for regular algebra for whatever reason. You'll get a letter that'll explain why, actually, but if they're not, does that mean they can't get in? No, it doesn't. At the high school. And so what you could do is sign a waiver, and if that comes up, then I don't want to talk about waivers too much tonight, but if that comes up and you want them in the pre-AP, just contact the counselor, which is me, and I will talk you through that. And then I put this, there's no information on here, it's a reminder for me, because we do have some 7th graders that are taking Algebra 1 pre-AP this year, and those students will take Geometry pre-AP next year. There's not really any other options for them. They will take the Geometry pre-AP. And a weird little thing about Geometry pre-AP is even though it's a higher level class than algebra, they have to take the STAR test for the state rules, right? So they don't need to worry about it by no means, but just know that they'll have to take the STAR test. Okay, now what about Advanced English? Well, Advanced English is not a high school credit. And so it's not, I want to say it's not serious, because English is serious, but we consider all of our kids for Advanced English. If they're in advanced and they have an A, they're going to be in advanced next year. If they're in regular and they have, I don't know, let's say a 95 or higher, and their teacher recommends them, then they'll likely be recommended for Advanced English for next year as well. Again, those decisions occur later in the year. Again, letters will go home, teachers will let your kids know, and that typically happens around in April or so. Oh, I do like to make sure we do have your right address, particularly for the students, because you want to get this letter. So make sure that we have your right address. Okay, computer literacy. It's required by all 8th graders. It is a computer class in which they learn all kinds of software. They learn databases, and they learn spreadsheets, and they learn green screens and morphing, things I don't even know how to do. Matter of fact, for my presentation last night, I had to put a picture, well, I didn't have to, but I wanted a picture of our current administration. And we had one from the previous year, and we're all the same, except for one, and that's Ms. Scott. She's the principal of Cypress Grove. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a picture. I really want a picture up here. And I took a snapshot of Mrs. Pamalis. I think she may have gone now. And I had one of my 8th grade students, that's one of my aides, said, hey, can you show me how to, oh yeah, click, 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 took it off the background, put it, superimpose that puppy right on top of that. I learned something. And that was so easy, I had no idea, but you learned it in computer literacy. Anyway, there is a placement test. We do have, a lot of our students are very computer literate already. We do have a placement test. It will occur on the 3rd or the 4th. It's not both days, it's one or the other. There is a permission form and a review sheet that can be received at my office. It's also online. If you go to my website, you can find it. And to be honest with you, if they show up on the 3rd, and we're going to let them take it. Because, I mean, don't worry about turning it in as much as making sure they bring it with them. And if they score well enough, then they don't have to take computer literacy next year because they will have shown that they're proficient. And of course, there's always summer school. We will get the results of the proficiency test to you or to the kids prior to the deadlines for summer school, okay? And I told the kids, there's no harm in trying, because if you walk in and you make 20, we're just gonna shred it and so be it. And if you pass, we'll keep it for your file. Question in the back.
Does it cost something to take the placement test?
No, ma'am, this is a free test. The computer literacy exam does not cost any money. It's here at our school. It's in our computer lit lab.
Is it during the day?
And it's not during the school day, it's right after school. Right after school. And it does, I think, an hour and a half to 2 hours, and usually the kids that pass it take most of the time to finish it. Okay, so going back to summer school, again, you all must take it, but if they do sign up for summer school, what I'll do is I'm going to go down to the bottom of the registration page, and there's places for 3 alternates, and whatever your student wants to take in place of computer lit, they're going to put in that first alternate blank, and that's how we're going to know what to put them in. So the alternates are important. Okay, computer literacy, it's in June. It's, I don't know, first week of June or so. Usually goes toward the very end of June. There's an online version and there's a classroom version. So it's actually a little bit more than $100. I think it's moved up to 110, 115, something like that. There's a classroom version, a traditional sit in class at a computer lab, take class about 3 hours a day. They typically have morning and afternoon sessions. There's also an online version where you go the first or second day and they tell the kids how to do it, and then the kids go home and they do it. It's the same class no matter how you do it, and it usually takes kids 2 to 3 weeks, and some kids finish it even quicker because once they find out they can do it on their own, they're just like, let's knock it out, and they just do it. That registration typically occurs in April and it's online, so that's when that will occur. Health is also an option for some kids. There's so few 8th graders that need help, it's unbelievable, but I do mention it because there will be a handful that will need help, and I'll tell you who those are here shortly. I'm gonna go ahead and say what I'm scared I'm gonna forget. I'm sorry.
Is there a free or reduced lunch cost?
No, I don't know what there usually is. Is there a free and reduced lunch cost for summer school? In the past, there has been. I don't know yet, but probably. I'm going to say this next piece before I forget, and I may have a slide, I don't remember, but I don't want to forget to say it, because there are some kids that absolutely have to take summer school, and this is the type of student it is. Let's think through. We got English, math, science, history. Those are all required courses. We have an athletic kid who's in band, and they're taking Spanish. That's 7. What are they missing? Computer lit. If they don't take computer lit this summer, then they can't continue to take those classes. That full year class could be AVID. It could be athletics, AVID, and Spanish. It could be yearbook, AVID, and Spanish. Yearbook, AVID, and AVID. I mean, there's a lot of combinations. But if that's your student, please be aware that if they don't take, I always have to ask this difficult question, is when I have students that come to me and they've signed up for classes like that, I need to ask them, so what are you going to drop if you don't take computer lit in summer? Because that's a question I need to know. And the choices are things like, are you going to drop athletics? Oh, no, I'm going to drop athletics. Well, what about band? No, I've been in band since 5th grade, 6th grade. I'm not going to drop band. What about AVID? Well, you can't drop AVID. My gosh, that was so what do you do? Those kids have to take computer lit. So just make sure you know if your child needs that course or not. Watch, I'm going to slide on in a minute. Watch. Okay, athletics, my favorite topic. Bottom line for athletics is the students must obtain a coach's signature to be in athletics, and that's kind of the bottom line. If they don't have the coach's signature, I am not able to sign them up for athletics. Mr. Miles, I had my form on the 9th. It had my coach's signature, and today is the 10th, and it's the day that it's due, but I've lost it. Now what do? Their form is late, and that's problematic for your child. Does that mean that the coach won't come back and email me and say, yes, let this child in? They could. They don't like doing that. And, you know, so just be aware that I have to have a coach's signature. The next question on here is, Is the health requirement met? Well, 98% of our athletes have already taken health. They took it in summer, they took it in the fall, or they're taking it right now. And if that's the case, then the answer is yes. Who would not have taken health? Well, if you're a 7th grader right now is not in athletics, and they go to the coach, and they talk to the coach, and the coach says, yes, you can be in athletics, those students have to take health. The wellness that they took previously does not count as health. So they will either have to take health during the school year, a lot of 7th graders, or they will take it in summer school. And there's always 2 or 3. There's not many that this impact, but I just want to make sure you all understand how that works. And then everybody else will take PE Foundations. PE Foundation is a high school credit. That's why there's an asterisk there. It counts as a PE credit. So when I start talking about there's 26 credits to graduate high school, one of those has to be a PE credit. And so this will count as half of their PE credit, and then those have to pick up another half while they're in high school. You cannot take athletics and foundations together. It's against your own rules. Foundations is kind of like the second class of wellness. It's got a little health involved in it, and it's got a little in the PE. They combine those 2 things in that class. Again, athletics is to prepare students for high school sports. They must participate they want them to at least try out for 2 sports if they're going to be in athletics. They have to remain eligible. Coaches will receive, at the end of the year, a list of all the students in athletics and all of their 6-week grades. And if their grades are not passing well, usually it's 2, they can't be failing in 2 or more of their semesters, because if they are, then it's a no pass, no play issue, and they typically won't sign. They won't allow them to continue in athletics. There's also an ISS thing. If you have more than 7 days of ISS, that coach may request that your student be removed from athletics for those reasons also. You do have to have a physical every year. That changed a few years ago. And so students in athletics will have to have a physical again this coming year. It has to be after a certain date. I think that date's in April. But that's another reason they could be removed from athletics. If it's the 2nd week of school and your student is in athletics and they don't have their physical, the coaches will ask you to remove them as well. Any questions about athletics? Ooh, got one more slide. These are our sports. Most of you know this already. Football, basketball, and track for boys. Volleyball, basketball, and track for girls. After school only is cross country, golf, and tennis. In other words, if your student is only going to play golf, then they really don't need to be in athletics, because that's after school. I made an error. Cross country is before school, not after school. But golf and tennis are both after school. Mr. Miles, my son is going to play golf and basketball. Should he be in athletics? Yes, he should. And then we talk about foundations, and notice it is a high school credit. Okay, GT classes. Any questions? I don't want to go too far without. Okay, GT classes. This is one of the few classes that students can take more than one time. If they've taken GT STEM this year, Better Knows Robotics, then they can take it again next year. They'll build a different robot. Same thing with project exploration. They will do it obviously in different projects. So your student does have to be GT. It does require a signature of the GT teacher. I can also sign it. GT STEM occurs in the fall or the beginning of the year, and project exploration is always in the spring. Mr. Miles, my son or daughter is extremely smart, but they're not in GT. Can they take this class? The answer, unfortunately, is no, they can't. Mr. Miles, my son or daughter is not GT, but I would like them to be. What do I do? Then you'll contact me, and GT nominations come out in, I want to say it's March, early March. You'll nominate your students, and then sometime in April, they'll be tested with the test that we use to determine if your student qualifies as GT, and then you'll find out in May if they qualify. And if they do qualify, they'll have the opportunity to change their schedule at that time. Foreign language is pretty easy. If your student took Spanish 1A and you want them to receive the high school credit for it, they absolutely must take Spanish 1B in 8th grade. And it is a full year class. So after they've taken all of 7th grade Spanish, they'll take all of 8th grade Spanish, and at the end of that, if they've done well, passed, then they will receive a high school credit. The grade goes on the transcript. does not count for GPA. If your student did not take Spanish this year, they are not eligible to start Spanish as an 8th grader. They will have to wait until their freshman year or their 9th grade year in high school, and then they'll have the choice of Spanish or German or Latin or French or Mandarin Chinese. Oh, yes, ma'am, sorry.
If they take 7th grade Spanish and 8th grade Spanish, does that satisfy their high school requirements?
That's a good question, and no, it doesn't. When they take all the way through 7th grade and all the way through 8th grade, they get 1 high school credit for it. And then typically those students will go ahead and take Spanish 2 or 2 honors as a freshman. Mr. Miles, do they have to do that? Have to is such a strong word, and the answer is no. They could change languages, but if they change languages, then they have to have 2 more years, because the requirement from the state is 2 years of the same language. Okay? Just for the record, your counselor recommends that students get 3 years of a language, but that's just my opinion. So, if your student is in Spanish 2 honors this year, then they have the option that they can take Spanish 3 next year. We have it here on our campus. It is a pre-AP course. If they are in Spanish 2 honors right now, when they pass it, they will get 2 high school Spanish credits, 2 foreign language credits. One of those will be an honor, and then they're gifted the other one because they're in Spanish 2. And then they can go on and take 3 if they want to. Just for the record, I have to say my opinion on it. I think they should. They don't have to, but I think they should. If they've gone that far, you might as well take Spanish 3. And it is a pre-AP credit. If your student is a 7th grader and they're taking Spanish 3 right now, they're at the end of the year, they're going to get 1 honor pre-AP type credit for high school, and they're gifted the other 2 years. So they'll have 3 foreign language credits by taking this class. Before I get into Spanish 4, if your student is not in Spanish this year, are a native speaker, they can speak, they can write, and they can read some Spanish. We are offering a placement test on February the 23rd. Just have them come by my office, and I'll give them the form that they need, and they can take the test. If that is your student, please, please, please have them come by and take the test. Even if they decide not to participate in the Spanish courses, they would have the option, and it's too good of a deal to pass up. I mean, if you can get 2 credits for 1 class, I don't know why you wouldn't do that, 1 being an honor credit. So if your student is a native speaker, call me or have them come by so that we can hook them up with this exam. Okay, so if you're taking Spanish 3, you have 2 options of classes that you can take next year. And I know this is such a small amount of you, and I appreciate everybody being patient while I talk about it. There is Spanish 4 at the high school. This is problematic in several ways. First, it's an AP level course. It is taught exactly like a college level course. The novels that they read are very college level based, and some of the content of some of those novels may not be appropriate for some of our 8th grade students. That's my opinion. Okay. There's some fees. There's an AP test. If they take the AP test and they do well, they get college credit. But the problem is the transportation. You have to transport your student to the high school and back every single day, and that can become very cumbersome. And things in your life can change, and jobs change, and you may not be able to provide that transportation. That's not going to be so negative on it, and I don't mean to be. But the other piece of the puzzle that makes it challenging is Spanish 4 is typically not offered first period at the high school, which is when a lot of our kids go over there and take high school courses. And typically it is not offered 7th period, which is the other time of day that our kids go over and take it. Now, I won't know that for a fact until late July, when the high school completes their master schedule. And they don't guide their master schedule based on our 2 or 3 kids that are wanting to take Spanish 4, or 5 or 6, or how many there are. But we do have another option for those kids, and it's a Spanish literacy course. Now here's the thing about the Spanish literacy course. They have to have completed Spanish 3. It is a half-year course. It is a bridge between Spanish 3 and Spanish 4. These kids are expecting to take Spanish 4 AP when they move to 9th grade. It is optional, it's obviously that's not required, and it's also dependent upon class enrollment. This year, unfortunately, we didn't have the course because we only had about 4 students that showed any interest in wanting to take the course. But we're offering it again this year, and depending upon various factors, we'll be able to offer it or not. If you're in that situation, you may have noticed that there is not a place on your registration sheet to sign up for this course. I didn't know it at the time that we created the sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to those advanced 3 classes, and we're going to ask those kids, we're going to speak to those kids, and then we're going to want them to do 2 things. One, they need to just let us know verbally, yes, I want to do that. And 2, they're just going to write it in. I want to take Spanish literacy on their registration sheet. And then we're going to get a count, and from there, it'll be just determined if we're able to offer the course or not. Any questions about any of this Spanish stuff we discussed? All right, we have music, fine art, we have orchestra, band, and choir. It does require a signature, and it says required is such a strong word in this particular case because, you know, if your student's been in an orchestra, and I'm not going to keep them out of the orchestra. I mean, their orchestra director wants the kids in the orchestra, so I'm going to make sure that they get there. We want the orchestra teacher to sign it. Same thing with band and choir. And they will make a determination of which level they should take. I always tell the kids, don't worry what they sign. If they sign up for concert, don't freak out, because they oftentimes will change their mind by the end of the year. Toward the end of the year is when they hold the tryouts. All these directors send the counselors a list of how they should be divided as far as concert, varsity, or whatever. You cannot join orchestra if you've not been in orchestra before. It's a little too late. And but you could join band, because we do have a beginning band, and you can join choir even if you've never been in choir before. This is the list of other electives that we have for 8th graders, and it's an extensive list. I'm happy to say that we offer all these classes. A lot of these are offered to 7th graders as well. We have Art 1, 2, Theater 1 and 2. Communications Applications right in the center is an 8th grade only class. It's kind of like what we used to take as speech, except they've changed the curriculum, and it's not stand up and give speeches. It's more about the actual communication between people. And so it's a little bit different focus in the class. They do have to give some speeches, but it's not all about speeches. High school credit. I may have a slide on that. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, but Cat News is our yearbook class, and I told the kids, this is one of the coolest classes in my opinion. The kids completely make the yearbook. They do the editing, they do the pictures, they take the pictures, they develop pages, they do the interviews, they write the stuff. I can't think of the words right now, but anyway, you can tell I wasn't in journalism. But they create the entire yearbook, and it is a full year course. There is an application for students to take yearbook, and usually there's about 15 to 20 kids in it each year. I do have some of the applications up front if you want to grab one for your student before you leave. So in other words, since it's an application process, this application is due at the time they turn in the registration form. So if they check that they are interested in yearbook, I want this form turned in at the same time. Now that doesn't mean they're automatically in yearbook. I know they've done what they're supposed to do to be able to get in yearbook. And then if for some reason they don't make yearbook, I will go down to their alternates, and I will use their alternates to fill their schedule if they don't make yearbook. And there'll be a letter that they'll receive to let them know. Oh, I almost forgot to say, you can't take a class twice. You can't take Theater 1 again if you've already had Theater 1. You can't take practical law again if you've already had it. We talked about the GT classes. You can take those more than once, and you can also take PE more than once as long as you're not in athletics. Okay. Now, AVID is also on your registration sheet. It's advancement via individual determination. It is a college preparatory type class. There is a focus and a students that it is directed to. The applications are due February 1st. If your student isn't AVID already, they do not need to turn in another application. But if they're interested in it, the applications will be due February 1st. They turn them in by the end of February, and then they'll have If they get past the application process, there's an interview process that they go through that will happen right before spring break, and then the decisions will be made after spring break. So again, if you check Avid, doesn't mean you're going to be an Avid, it means you're interested in Avid. And if they don't make the Avid, then I'll go down and look at their alternates, and we'll use those to build their schedule. There's that yearbook thing. I knew it was in there somewhere. I've already talked about this, so I'm not going to review it again, unless anybody has a question. Okay, aids of all kinds. Well, the kids just think that's the greatest joke ever, by the way. So who wants to be an aide? And they all think it's funny. We have office aid, and counselor aid, and library aid, and athletic aid, and a band aid. Okay, and it's one. I know band aid, right? And so when I told the kids, how many people want to be an aide? And man, half the kids raised their hand. Like 50% of our school wants to be an aide of some sort, which is great because we need them. But in reality, there's just not enough positions to fill. I mean, I'm a counselor. We have 28 total the whole year. The front office probably has about 32 total. The library has about 20. The athletics has about 8. The band has about 4. So there's just not tons of these positions. And so I do allow them, there's a place on their form that says aid. And I told them that I want them to put their first choice if they're interested in aid. And then they can put a comma and they can put a second choice. That doesn't mean they're going to get one of those choices. It just means that if they don't get office aid, they'll be considered for whatever else they put on there, okay? It does require some good social skills. A lot of people have wanted to learn in a position. I know my counselor aides, we talked a lot about confidentiality, and they learn a little bit about how the office works. And sometimes there's a lot of downtime. The kids are able to do their homework or whatever, but man, when they're needed, they are needed, and we're thankful for them. Most of the kids enjoy it. So anyway, when we start talking about alternates, aid should not be an alternate because they're going to fill up. There's no reason to put aid as an alternate because if you didn't put aid in the front part or the top, then you're not going to get it as an alternate because there's just too many people that want it. How many credits can you sign up for? The answer is 7. 7 and only 7, not 6.5, not 8, 7 exactly. At the bottom of the form, it says, if I can't have the electives I choose above, or if I take computer literacy in summer school, I want to take blank, blank, and blank. And you've heard me talk about alternates a lot tonight. I cannot tell you how important it is. Matter of fact, I told the kids, I said, every single student in this room has to put 3 alternates at the bottom. And I said, I always said, Mr. Miles, I have already signed up for my classes, and there is no other classes that I'm interested in. Is that okay? And I say, sure, it's okay. And I'll take their form and I'll turn it around and I'll say, okay, what's your first alternate? Because I want all kids have to have 3 alternates, no matter what. I mean, if you don't make Avid, I gotta look at your alternates. If you don't take summer school, if you do take summer school, I gotta look at your alternates. If you don't make yearbook, I gotta look at your alternates. Class just doesn't work out, I gotta look at your alternates. So those are so important. And then, of course, obviously your signature. I wonder if I put that right in front of the camera. No, okay. Cheerleading and dance. If your student is already in cheerleading and dance, they will probably know exactly what to do. But there are some very specific dates that they need to know. The dates are the same for cheerleader and for dance. And the here, there's a tryout on the 3rd. You okay? Isn't that embarrassing? Oh gosh. Take a selfie on coffee, get $6,000. And there's a preview camp that everybody has to attend. And then there's a parent meeting on March the 7th that if you want to be in dance or you want to be in cheer, you have to attend. It's got how to be a cheerleader on one side, how to be a dancer on the other side. And you can pick one of these up as well, and I'll offer it to the kids also. This is not a class. It does not count as one of their 7 courses. This is an after-school activity. If your student changes their mind, or you change their mind for them, please just let me know, a quick email, and that's fine. Students oftentimes change their mind more than once, and you're welcome to email me those changes. On February 6th through 9th, those are the dates that I'm going to be going through science classes, and I'm going to be meeting with every one of your students face to face. The science teachers are familiar with this process. They will accept your child's form early. They'll review it, make sure they have the signatures, and they've got 7 credits, not 9. But between the 6th and the 9th, I'll be going to the science classes, and I'll be looking at those forms and talking to your students. And so if they have questions, that will be another time that they can ask me directly, and I can help them give them an extra form if they lose it, that kind of stuff. But they are, I think the official due date is on the 10th. I told the kids the 9th because I always got an extra day, because if you wait till the 10th, they don't learn it. So I'm going to go back on the 10th. Okay, get involved, and I told the kids this, the kids this when they were in 6th grade also, and I know you guys know how important it is, but I have 3 main reasons why I feel like getting involved in school is important. We have a lot of things to get involved in. And these are some of the clubs that we offer, and then some years we have new clubs that come up, like Science Club just came up a couple of years ago, and I don't even have it listed on there, that's terrible. We have a Science Club, and it's amazing. What Mrs. Abney has done with Science Club. But we have a lot of them. But number one, and y'all probably know this, but research shows that they took kids that are not involved in school, and they take kids that are involved in school. And the kids that, what did I just say? Kids that are and kids that are not. And the kids that are, they always do better. They just almost always do better. So that's one good reason to get your student involved. Number 2, and you can think back to your junior high years probably, and you probably don't remember the lesson on genetics, and you probably don't remember the lesson on, I don't know, Thomas Jefferson or whatever it may be, but you probably do remember the club activities that you've done. You remember the band or the orchestra or the contest or the trip or the whatever it was. I'm sure these kids that just went to the inauguration will remember that for the rest of their lives. And so get involved in something at our school, because those are your good memories. And the final reason, it's more of an academic reason, and parents will care more about it, is I gave the kids an example. Let's say you graduate from high school, and I'm going to use, you have a 3.8, and this gentleman has a 3.4. And this lady, she's a great student, she goes home and she does nothing. And this gentleman here, he's the vice president of the FCA, he's a member of student council, and he's a member of the coding club. I'm Texas A&M, who do I want? I mean, who would you want? You know, if I'm McDonald's and I'm hiring someone to work for me, who do I want? I want someone who's going to be more than just a good student. This is what I told your kids. So there's an academic reason also, and the colleges are looking more and more and more at the things that are outside of school. What are the extra things that they're doing? So. Does anybody have any general questions about anything I've said tonight? Yes, sir.
Let's see. Could you clarify if the PE foundation for 8th grade, is it necessary or is it just for high school credit?
Good question. He asked, is the PE foundation required or is it just for high school credit? It is one of 2 options. Your students can either do option 1, which is the athletic option, or they have to do option 2, which is the PE foundation option. So they'll have to do one or the other. Just for the record, PE, regular or elective called PE, is not the same class as PE foundations. PE that is the elective is like old school PE, you know. PE foundations does have a book part that includes some help. Good question, thank you. Any other general questions? Yes, ma'am.
Communication applications were listed to have high school credit.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it required for high school graduation?
Oh, that's a good question also, because it used to be. It used to be a required course. It is not anymore. It does count as a half of a credit, and it goes toward their electives. And to be honest with you, they're probably not going to need that half, but it's always nice to have extra credits in case there's something other they want to do. You know, some kids get in trouble in high school and struggle through some of their classes. It's nice to have as many credits as you can possibly get. Other quick questions? Yes, ma'am.
What all is in summer school?
What all is in summer school?
What classes can you sign up for?
Computer lit and the handful of kids that need help. And that's the 2 classes that we offer for summer.
Is it not the communication application?
No, ma'am. Not at this level. I don't know if they're going to offer it at the high school level or not, but it's not for 7th going to 8th. If they do offer it, it would be for 8th going to 9th. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, summer school's in June, yes, ma'am.
I just have a question on like the off-campus PE, the kids that do that now, that doesn't count for that PE foundations if they were still doing all that.
Thank you for mentioning off-campus PE, and it does not apply to very many people in here. But off-campus PE, what it is the school district has an agreement with an outside agency. That agency, whether it be Brazos Valley Gymnastics or whatever it is, had to apply with our district to be an off-campus PE site. And if your child is a member of that, and they are getting a minimum of 5 hours outside of school that can be documented, that they can participate in what's called off-campus PE. Now, the kids that take off-campus PE, they can actually have a 7th period off or first period off. Because some of these kids do an amazing, just unbelievable amount of hours, especially the swimmers, oh my gosh. Or they can just not have to take PE. And most of the kids that are doing off-campus PE, they're already doing it. But for those of you that are in here that are doing off-campus PE, just know you do have to reapply each year. And the applications are not available yet. I'm expecting to receive it either tomorrow or the next day. And if you email me, I can send it to you. Yes, ma'am.
So for those who get recommended or whatever, they get to go to Algebra 1, you said, pre-AP? Is that right? Am I naming it right?
Yes, ma'am. If they're in 7th grade advanced, ma'am.
Yeah. So as a parent, I always worry that they're going to be skipping part of the curriculum or they're going to be weak in some areas because I want my son to have a solid math base. So do you recommend taking any classes that would kind of assist their work?
If your student is in 7th grade advanced math, there is no gap between that course and Algebra 1 pre-AP. There's just no gap. Those kids all do wonderful. And so that's not something you probably need to worry about. Okay? There's no gap between those because in 7th grade advanced it is all 7 and all 8. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and close out for this evening. I thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. I am going to stay up here until all the questions are answered. And so if you have a question, please come up and I'll stay until the end, and then you can always email me. Thank you again for coming.